Okay. It's working. Hey everyone. If you're just joining us, let's see, I should keep track of time. 5:18. Hey everybody, it's me, your old pal Steven. I'm here, I'm cooking dinner, but I needed an excuse to, I wanted to do a live stream test, but I also have to cook dinner for the next 40 minutes. So while I'm cooking, I thought I would just hop on the live stream here and talk to all you guys about, I guess about whatever. I'm using a new live stream system. Let's see. You should see it cutting in and out. Let's see if let's slow these cuts down just a little bit. Using a new device you may have seen over the last couple of days or so. Over the weekend we were trying to stream a game called Fog of Love, and that had varying degrees of success. I'm doing another test here where we're not in the basement, where I'm just on the Wi-Fi, and we're going to see here in my house, and we're going to see how that goes. So if the stream is futzy, it's just because I'm testing it. I should get my computer so I can see the chat. Hold on, guys. Whew. Okay. Oh, I got nervous for a second there. I thought maybe my suit pants dropped to the floor, which would be very scary because I have, my suit pants are important. All right. 3 people watching now. One of them's me. All right. Great. So I can monitor the chat over there. Thought I'd just talk to you guys and answer some questions. I'll start by saying this so people watching it later know what's up. I wanted to just let everybody know that we have a lot of exciting stuff going on Patreon right now. We just hit our $150 per episode goal, which meant that we got a bonus episode Threshold released for our Patreon subscribers called Dungeon Crawl, which is it's a very, very old episode. It's actually the oldest episode of Threshold we ever shot. It's one of our original tests, and it's sort of in and out of continuity. It's the episode that ends up becoming the ranch timeline. Or that ends up leading into the ranch timeline. So this is like the point where the ranch timeline and our timeline haven't diverged yet, more or less. But it's pretty fun because Vel is in the episode, and we actually are even referencing an earlier episode, which is talking about how Kevin's talking about like tweaks that he's making to Vel's character, even though Vel hasn't actually appeared yet. Yes, it's even before the ranch time. Is this? Yeah, it's even before the ranch timeline. Yes. So you can check that out right now if you are a Patreon subscriber. And I highly recommend you do that, because not only does it help support us, but you get some bonus content. We have some, there's new episodes of something called Bird's Eye. They're not really new episodes, but they're sort of little companion pieces that go to some of our other Threshold episodes. Typically before an episode of Threshold, Patrick will bring his little, he'll bring a camera, and he'll sort of film us talking about, we're just, for lack of a better term, we're just shooting the shit before the episode starts, and just getting together, having a good time. We call those bird's eye because they're from sort of Kaw's perspective at the table. And they're just like Patrick's POV of just kind of us hanging out, talking about the episode. Some of it's behind the scenes where, we'll talk about like, okay, what are our goals for this episode and that kind of thing. And you can check those out. That is for our highest tier Patreon subscribers, which is right now only $8 per episode. So it's not even monthly. It'll probably work out to be $8 a month because it'll be $8 every time we post an episode. So if we don't post an episode in a month, you're not paying. But $8 per episode at Threshold. That'll give you access to not only our Bird's Eye content, but all the other content, and a special gift, which I'm not going to talk too much about now. That's a special pin that we have made, a pin that's very close to my heart, and for both of our $8 tier patrons and our $5 tier patrons, you can have that if you want. We'll need a mailing address, and then once I get a lot of people who want them, then I'll start sending them out. But I got a bunch of them in the other room. I can't show them to you yet because I have to give them to some important people in my life first. So you know. Yes, so I see Josh in here. Josh Wingfield says that it was a fun episode to watch. The nostalgia is real. Yeah, it's like, I mean, if you are a fan of like OG, back in the day Threshold content, that is what this episode is 100%. Because I mean, it's us in the basement. Our friend Rob is back there switching the cameras and all that. Like, it has a different title, but it's like prime us just goofing around. So if you are a fan of OG Threshold, the nostalgia will be very real. Brian says, I always thought it was weird that Pamela mentioned her friend Vel in the pilot episode before he was introduced. Will be fun to watch. Yes, that's exactly what that is referencing, because Vel went sort of in and out of the canon. We had you'll kind of see from the ranch timeline that we originally wanted to keep the cast to 4. We tested a bunch of different people in the initial Dungeon Crawl episodes, and we wanted to keep the cast at 4, and then a couple of episodes in, when Vel shows up, we pretty much had decided, okay, let's just extend it to 5 and put Vel in there. Rather than bring him in later. Half the carrot. Oh, I need to do potatoes first! Look at me getting all distracted, getting this out of order. So, yes, that's why Christine talks about her friend Vel, because Vel had appeared in that episode despite, in sort of this loose continuity. In the pilot, because we hadn't really talked too much about the world, or if this world was going to be consistent, but we liked it so much that we ended up sticking with it. Sort of retconning the stuff about Christine having a friend Vel. Here it is. Here's my potato peeler. All right, let's do this. So again, for maybe people who are just joining us, check out the Patreon. Again, you get access to that episode of Dungeon Crawl. Just for even donating $1, you get access to most of the Patreon content. We have sort of 3 tiers, you could call them. Just our regular supporter tier, our Marenton Loyalist tier, in which you will get the special pin, and you will get, whenever I post sort of Marenton-based content, special content is for our Marenton supporters. Additionally, for our Marenton Loyalist supporters, which is at our $5 level, you get access, and I guess rather than access, the ability to participate in our special polls. I've done a poll once already that some people participated in for an episode that hasn't been released yet, but I promise you the poll was not for nothing. At the $5 level, when I need some help, I can't quite decide what to do when I'm prepping in a particular section, I will ask you guys, the fans, to participate in the poll. And those are for our Meriton loyalists and above, so that's at the $5 level and the $8 level. So the question that I asked for this last one is we enter a summoner's workshop. Sorry, let me peel this potato and then I'll talk right to you, right to the camera. We entered a summoner's workshop and I needed something to come out of a portal. And I asked you guys, the fans, what should come out of the portal, and I had a bunch of different ideas. Should it be Procure? Should it be axiomatic bounty hunters from the plane of law? Should it be soldiers loyal to Tom or Cooper? Should it be leftover devils from Kumbhakarna? Should it be, like what should it be? What should it be? And some of our fans got to vote on it. Unfortunately, it wasn't that active, but you guys definitely pointed me in the right direction. And so when that episode goes up here, hopefully soon, I need to poke Eric about where we are in the editing process on an episode. We have 2 episodes in the can. We've done 2 shoot days. So we have at least 2 episodes of Threshold, and we're shooting another one at the end of the month. But that poll was for that episode, and so it should be out really any time now. As soon as it's done being edited, we'll pop it up. Again, I'm hoping that I can figure out how to get this live stream system. This is great television, Stephen. Your butt as you peel potatoes off camera. Let's see, any comments? Let's see. Oh, what am I making? I'm making. It's a HelloFresh. It's ribeye steak over Gruyere mashed potatoes. So should be pretty good. Yeah, that's what I'm making. So anyway, if you had, I see Josh in here. You have an opinion about the Arrow Dimension. If you have an opinion about what I should do in situations like that, please go onto our Patreon, become one of our Meriton loyalists. Okay, I'm doing this over the sink, so at least I'm on camera. Be one of our Meriton loyalists, and you will be able to participate in those polls. And so that way, when I have questions on what to design, I'm going to try to do 1 per episode where I sort of let you guys help, and you'll know a little, you'll have a little, be able to help us steer the story and Threshold a little bit. Which I think is super fun because, as I've mentioned in some of my afterwards and stuff before, I really like, as a DM, when I get control taken away from me. It's part of my improviser background that sometimes I like it when, when I'm not in control necessarily of what happens, because it's really good because the players are going to do that to you anyway. So sort of the more people working together and collaborating on this, the better it's going to be. We're gonna have so much more fun if we're all working on this together. You guys as fans, and our players getting their input. I mean, so much of our Threshold world is related to is built by our players and built by our interaction with the fans. I mean, shoot, we had an entire arc which was built by fans who wanted to sort of do a collab, our Threshold Moonlight guys, Matt and Tom, and we loved working with them. It was awesome, and we ended up getting so much of like the world of the elves and so much of the world of Threshold got fleshed out in those episodes. That's kind of one of the magics of role playing, is that it's a collaborative effort. So anyway, consider all that, and consider joining our Patreon. Let's see, what other, I don't know what your guys' kind of feelings on this are, but I'm thinking of maybe, it seems like all these YouTubers now, like the big thing, not that I really consider myself a YouTuber, we're barely, we barely do anything, but thinking of maybe doing a merch store, maybe some shirts and stuff, because there's a lot of, maybe even just because I want some of our stuff on shirts myself, you know. But oh, I wasn't supposed to do this so well. I don't know your guys' opinion on that. Leave a comment in here if you think we should. If you think we should have some merch, I would love some T-shirts. I know ages ago Brian tried to set up the Threshold T-shirt contest, but it never really went anywhere because I don't think we had the means to make that many T-shirts. Okay, let's look at the comments. Let's look at the chat. So far, no hiccups. Good, good. How does it sound for you guys? Let's see. Brian says steak with compound butter. I don't know. I'm just following this one step at a time. I have some Gruyere. I have some ribeye steak. I know like pretty much every single piece of content on the internet now is sponsored by Blue Apron and other meal. Ooh, oven's preheated. Other meal sharing services. I'm gonna put on a sweatshirt so I look a little less terrible on camera. There we go. That's better. Let's see. Oh yes, Josh, you did. I think I remember you saying that you wanted all of them, or someone said they wanted all of them, and so I tried to accommodate as much as possible. Unrelated, so Josh Wingfield says, unrelated, but how's the newfound depth to your world building change the feel of Threshold's world? So outside of the game, I have been continuing to build sort of the world of Threshold a little bit, and I've actually been doing this for quite a while now, because I've been trying to just add a little bit more depth. Tuscars with olive oil, paprika, and plenty of salt and pepper on a baking sheet. Okay. I've just been trying to add a little bit more detail. I've always loved like sort of fictional languages and stuff for fantasy, and I kind of got into that a little bit. And naturally, you know, Threshold's my baby, so I keep coming back to it. I actually started my conlaning process for Elvish because I got a little bit tired of just stealing Latin wholesale. So I tried to, and a little bit of it is like retconning, so that you know, so that Belle's name stays mostly the same. I don't know if you've noticed in some of our previous episodes, or you'll probably notice it when we come back with the new episodes, but there's a shift. Sometimes I call Belle's counterpart Tarek in some of the older episodes, which is what Kevin originally named him, but I often call him Tarig with a G, because in my Elvish conlang, I just sort of removed certain sounds that the elves don't do. I kind of decided that the k sound, that sort of back of the throat, that stop there, is an offensive sound for the elves. So so in their accent, they might pronounce those sounds as g, which is really just whether or not it's the k or g is just really whether or not it's the same back of your throat motion, but it's just a different voicing. So I started doing that for the elves, and that actually really helped me as we were sort of fleshing out the homeland, really like setting a lot of that stuff up, trying to do a much deeper dive into our into just sort of the world building, and not that there was anything wrong with our world building before, but you know, there's a lot of things that maybe are not as realistic as they could be, or as consistent as they could be. You know, like some of our best world building, you know, is some of the stuff with the elves, and you know, some of our comedy stuff. But I do find that a lot of things have a lot more weight when they're sort of world built out. So it's not going to change the game too much. I try to keep some of the stuff that I have been adding into the Threshold world. Half-inch cubes. the stuff that I've been adding, like the conlangs and some of the deeper dive into some of the threshold stuff, I've been kind of trying to keep at arm's length from the game itself. I haven't been, I've only been retconning when I really have to for the, you know, for the purposes of the game, like Clarion, when we see him again, even though, like, in my own headcanon, I have changed what the Morayish wear a little bit. You know, he's gonna stay the same, in the same way that you know, the more that I study and the more that I learn about sort of that kind of culture, or like in well, long story short, the reason that I'm doing a lot of this conlanging and world building is because I'm writing a book. I'm writing the events of Threshold into a novel format, and a lot of that extra world building stuff is going to add on to, is going to help sort of fill out the world of the novel. So I've been working on that for a little while now, and I think I have a pretty good plot line. Again, I consider it just a different universe, a different Threshold universe, a different timeline than maybe some of the other than our actual game takes place in. But that's the short answer. Let's see. Yeah, cooking with Steven and Laura. That's pretty much it. I did not cut my I did not cut my finger, Brian, but thank you for the concern. Keychains, Jorfdan. Is that how you say that? Jorfdan. Yeah. Okay. Good. Sound quality's good. Yeah, Brian. Well, I'll come back to this recipe, Brian, once I figure out what's actually making. Yeah, this is Cooking with Stephen Blair. I'm cooking while I'm making some announcing stuff. So I'm working on a Threshold book that I would like to try to get published, all said and done. But what that means is that certain conceits that we make when we're in a fantasy game don't exactly fly and would kind of be a little bit hokey in a fantasy novel. So I'm just trying to flesh it out a little bit more for my own purposes, because I like designing that stuff, but also so that as I'm sort of writing it in this book, there's maybe just a little bit more depth, which will probably seep its way and influence the game a little bit. But yes, so look for that. Who knows when? I'm hoping to have a solid chunk of it done by the end of this month. Over the next 29 days, or I guess a month from now, and then we'll see. Okay. So carrots go in for salt, pepper, paprika. There's the salt. So that's sort of what the conlanging has done. It's made me think about certain things more, and sort of be able to design just a little bit more in terms of thinking about the world and how these people interact, which, when the characters are grounded in a world, there's some really interesting nuances. Like, for those of you who are our Meriton subscribers, not only saw my post on the Patreon about what, like, Aranese nobles would wear, but they also would have seen, okay, I need to put these in. Hold on. Give me just a second. Okay. Oil, paprika. With 3/4 of a teaspoon paprika. I can't use all of it. Don't let me use all the paprika. How much did they give me? 1 tablespoon. Okay. So I need to use 3/4 of this. Sorry, everyone. Had to. Okay. There we go. Okay. And I put these in for 25 minutes. Great. Okay, so I made a bunch of posts on the Patreon. I'm still slowly going through them. They are posts talking about sort of what the traditional dress of, because I've been reading this book and I realized that dress in Threshold is sort of like this amorphous thing where people are like wearing pants and shirts, I guess, but most of them are described by what kind of armor they're wearing. That's not exactly accurate. Only certain pieces of clothing have been described. So I wanted to kind of establish a baseline of like, what are people wearing on a day-to-day basis in this world? And I'm cooking ribeye steak with carrots and potatoes. If I can get this meat out of the packaging. Watch, I'm going to slice my hand open. This is going to turn into Steven Goes to the Emergency Room, the live stream. Okay, there we go. So, but from a storytelling perspective, it's pretty cool because all of a sudden now we know that, like, we know the difference, or at least I do, and our Patreon subscribers will learn this pretty soon too, the difference between what men and women wear in Erinny's culture, which then it sort of can become a big story point when Christine has to attend a fancy banquet and she wears something different. It can be a statement of power, and especially in Fate. Spoiler alert, we're moving into Fate. Especially in Fate, stuff like that is going to become much more mechanically viable. So I'm excited for that. But those are available, again, to our Patreon subscribers to look at. I'm doing little drawings of my Erinny's dress here. I'll show you my drawings. I'm digitizing these one by one. And I'm digitizing these one by one, and I'm adding them into the up onto the Patreon, so you'll be able to see some more of Erinny's culture pretty soon. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to catch up here on the chat. Blair, I'm sorry, but what would stop the elves from just taking over their blatantly more powerful land? Can never hurt after they get... Oh, okay. So you're saying what stops the elves from taking over once they get their immortality? That's a great question, and that's actually something that we're exploring in our episodes of Threshold that are coming up. Because it is a great question. You have a race of people that is literally better than everyone else because they don't die. And, they had taken over the world before. What's going to stop them from doing it again? And that's going to be a great question and something that we're going to have to deal with. And something that we are dealing with in our episodes right now. Because there are other, humans have kind of, for the last 2,000 years, lived in a world in which elves die just like them. But there are other races out there that do remember what it was like when the elves were living forever. So that's a great question, and that's something that we're going to explore. But I'll just give a little bit of a spoiler. They're not the only race out there that worships the moon. Maybe that other race doesn't love the fact that they're being there are kids back on the block that seem to have the moon goddess's favor. In a medium pot with enough salted water covered by 1 inch. Bring to a boil. I put way too much water in there. Cover by 1 inch. It's just... Yeah. That is an accident waiting to happen. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Now, is the water supposed to be boiling? Medium pot by 1 inch. Bring to a boil. till 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. So I think you guys are on like a 1 minute delay. So after I say that this is boiling, just remind me in 14 minutes. Someone remind me in 14 minutes. Actually, that's a terrible idea. I will set a timer. Okay. Toast hazelnuts. Heat a large pan over medium-high heat. Add hazelnuts. Okay, large pan. So yeah, so those are some things. Blair, I hope that answers your question. So yeah, so the elves aren't the only players, aren't the only powerful players in town. So we're just gonna have to, think about what they're gonna do. Who some of these other powerful players are, and just kind of think about what are they gonna do? How do they feel about that? How does humanity feel about this? We know Christine has gone down to the homeland to sort of ask the elves for help in this war that she is involved in with Anastasia and the sort of secession war between the different Carmels. But, what does, how is that going to factor into all this? If the elves offer to help her, are they going to want some land? Are they going to want Sherry back? Does she have the authority to negotiate that, or does she even want? Is that something that she's going to want to? And how does Vel feel about all that? So, okay, we got to roast these for 3 to 5 minutes. Four minutes. Let's do it. Okay. Let's see. Let's keep going. What has drawn you to Fate versus 5e? I've talked about this in some other sources, but I'll reiterate it here. Fate, for me right now, is just a little bit more conducive into telling the stories that we want to tell. This first episode that will get released, you'll see the difference between, because we actually play some of the same events of the last episode we did, which is Creechoid Fechoid. We run some of the same events in Fate. I basically do that temple again. I retcon it a little bit back, so we never enter the temple, we never fight all the Creechoids. I do the entire temple from scratch in Fate, and you will notice a big difference. And what I personally feel is what we do in Creechoid Fechoid is not as good as what we do in the episode, which oh yeah, that one, I forget the title for it, but I think it's poop related. We go down the rabbit hole. We get in, unfortunately, into an endless cycle of poop jokes in that episode. But it is much more conducive to telling the... Am I back? I'm back! Sorry guys, I'm still testing out this new thing. Still testing out this new camera. Trying to get the hang of it. I just moved it onto the Ethernet, and so we'll see if that helps or if or if I wasted a lot of money on it. So I was talking about Fate. Come on now. I was talking about Fate and why we're switching. Long story short, it does what we do better. It does what we like to do a little bit better than D&D does. You'll see I run. We run an entire. We run an entire section of the dungeon over again from our last episode, Creatroid Featroid, and we redo it in Fate. And you'll see the difference for why I like Fate better, or at least better for the show and for what the stories we're trying to tell with Threshold. Because Fate lets us make social interaction more interesting, although there's a couple episodes where we do that bad. We do lots of, it can make combat more exciting in the way that it's less of a numbers game and more of about telling a story and give some of our other characters more to do. So, that's the reason. I'm going to move on to some other questions. But we talk about that a lot in the upcoming episode. Let's see. Blair says, yeah, but even if they aren't invulnerable, we're having that discussion about the elves, whether or not they would take over. I think they definitely would take over because you'd be amazed like what a lifetime of being able to do that kind of thing. 1 tablespoon of butter. Okay. I'm going to go with 1 tablespoon of butter. Yeah, having endless time to do something is a big deal. I mean, you look at what... I mean, the Elvish society is very much based on ancient Rome. And you look at how much of the world they took over. I'm going to put these guys on for another 2 minutes. Because that water did not boil when it was supposed to. So something to watch out for here in future episodes is, do the elves have now that they are immortal? What does that mean for their culture? And will they, how do they adjust to? They were antagonists of the world for a little while, having very famously occupying the Sherry region for a while and all that stuff. So we'll see how it goes. Let's see. In the book, it's a different universe but same gods, right? Yeah, kind of. So certain gods are going to get buffed, and some gods are going to get nerfed. Meta has different powers. He doesn't have, like Dika becomes more of a goddess of luck. Nera is very powerful in Nara is very powerful in a book format. Meta has a totally different power set. He has rather than talk about like game terms and that kind of thing, Meta would have discussions more about like being a publisher or an editor or being able to say talk about, oh yeah, well that was on page 54. So the book will have the same gods, but they'll be different. Boat Lenders League, a major power and world player. Let's more or less when the new episode will be online. I have to talk to Eric. It's really as soon as it's done being, as soon as he's done editing it, it's ready to go up. I was going to try to edit myself because I have the time, but to just kind of take some stuff off of his plate, but my computer's just not fast enough. I was able to edit the stuff for the Call of Cthulhu stuff. I was able to edit that, but but I'm not able to chug through 3 simultaneous, 720p video files, on my little laptop. I was having a hard enough time just getting the project set up, so I passed it back over to him. So that's kind of why there was a delay. Add half a teaspoon garlic. Okay. Just garlic. Thanks for bearing with me just a second. Ooh, yes. Garlic, some parsley. Let's tear these leaves off. I just got this new cutting board today. I'm very excited. I walked over to, there's a new Target by my house. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Target, their in-house Target brand is called Threshold. So in case y'all were curious about that. But yeah, I got a big one. Okay, 1 teaspoon, that's like this much. Parsley. Mustard. How's a little bowl? Small bowl, okay. Mustard and remaining paprika. Okay, so I'm making like a cool butter sauce. Oh, wait! Oh, okay. Mash to combine. That's weird. That's a weird way to describe what I'm doing here. I'm mashing. Woo! Dijon mustard. Love that kick. Okay. Okay, let's combine. Alright. Okay, so now I'm caught up in the comments before I died.
What smells coming from our house?
Is it a good smell or a bad smell?
A good smell.
Oh, good. I'm rebooting the camera. I didn't burn my hazelnuts. Wow! There's a lot of more comments now. Let me see. No, the channel keeps the same name, even though it's inaccurate now. We debated about that for a long time, about like, well, does that mean if we're doing Fate that we have to change the channel? And it was like, who cares? There's like seriously 500 of y'all. I think you'll be able to get the memo. Yeah, go ahead. Is it too smoky?
Probably not, but I guess I don't have to because that smoke alarm doesn't work.
Yeah. Oh, hot. Okay, what? Tamara, come here and mash these potatoes, please. Oh, carrots.
Do you have the cooking water?
No.
Your third quarter cup of cooking water?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No, this is the right number of cooks. Okay, wait. I gotta catch up. I gotta skip some of these. I'm gonna do this rapid fire so I can catch up. Elven soldiers still cook. Okay, we're having this discussion still about whether elves would take over the world. Great. Okay.
Hi guys.
Hey everyone. Okay. Yes. Mash the potatoes, please. That's the step that I'm on.
Half the cheese, right?
Oh, I forgot to add the paprika.
Half the cheese.
This is too much paprika to be added to this. I'm just gonna add a little bit of it.
Your alarm's going off.
Yep, that's a steak. Sorry, everyone. This always happens to me in these recipes. Is there comes a certain point in which I'm like, okay, yep, now I gotta do 15 things at once.
Oh, yeah, Havoc, I'm 5'10".
Yep, she's 1 inch taller than me. And so
That's why I don't wear heels all the time.
that's become actually in the planning of our wedding.
Yeah.
That's become a big thing where it's like, okay, so because she'll even like just standing is 1 inch taller than me.
What's the masher?
I don't know. I just live here. So yeah, just a reminder for maybe people who've jumped in, check out our Patreon. We have a lot of new and exciting things that we're adding onto there. Bird's Eye any post that I make, for the most part, will be available to all of our patrons. You can watch that new episode of Dungeon Crawl, which is the very earliest episode. And if we can reach the our $200 goal, I will release the Ranch Timeline episode, the episode that spawned the whole Ranch Timeline, the episode that was so terrible and we hated so much that we decided to completely ignore it and redo the entire episode.
Yep.
That became what ultimately becomes Steak's done. What ultimately becomes the hey, thank you to Noah who just pledged $8.
Yay!
Thank you. We're getting towards that $150 goal. I'm not going to do this like it was like a count up
No, please don't.
to the $150 goal because we're still a ways off. But if everyone just pledges a couple of dollars, we'll certainly be able to get there. It'll help us out a lot, especially me right now because I need to find another show to work on. But remaining garlic.
What'd you do?
Put all the garlic in this bowl.
Ooh, we're only $41 away from the Ranch Timeline.
Yeah. So, Ranch Timeline. It's a terrible episode, but if we
It's
can,
really bad, guys.
if we can,
really don't
if
want
we
to
can
see
get
it.
there, we did. So the pilot of Threshold is our reboot of.
Yes.
We redo the events of the Ranch Timeline, and you can see that I changed the tone in that moment. We made a very conscious decision. Rob and I were in our basement. We're in his basement, just talking about like how could we redo this episode to make it more fun and less heavy and less like it just felt really heavy. And he said, what if everyone just jumped? What if like bullywugs were behind it? And I said, what? Like the people just like jump out of their skin and are bullywugs? And he was like, yeah. So that's the episode. I don't think that ever aired. That's the episode right before the Ranch Timeline. But what?
It was too dry.
You're the mashed potato girl, so.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm gonna eat most of these.
No, you have to. No, Blair. The Ranch Timeline is hilarious. We for a long time we said no, we must never release it.
This can never see human eyes.
But now now that we've done an entire, we're so far out and we've all grown as people and we've all become better role players and better dungeon masters. And so now it's to the point where it's like, yeah, you know what? We did an entire arc about the Ranch Timeline. We gotta let the people see it. I almost considered releasing it closer to that time, but I also thought this is a good incentive.
It got the sync for a minute.
Oh yeah. So this camera's actually automatically looking for faces.
Because our sink has a face now.
Because our sink has a face. Okay, what do I do with this sauce?
Probably goes on something.
Oh, dollop steak with chilled butter,
There.
and garnish with remaining parsley. Oh, okay,
Giant
so.
thing of butter.
No, it's just this.
Oh,
But it needs to be chilled.
okay.
I'm gonna freeze it because we don't have much time left. $40 years ago? No! So the Patreon address is, I'll type it here into the comments. Actually, I'm going to post a big link. I'm going to post a link.
Where's the pepper?
Actually, can I make a card? I got to switch accounts.
Where's the pepper?
Oh, I don't know. I don't use pepper. Pepper is cancerous. Do you need this cheese?
I used half the cheese.
Oh, I'm supposed to
potatoes.
sprinkle, divide potatoes between plates and sprinkle with remaining cheese.
Okay.
I need plates. Oops. Hold on. Hold on.
Freezing it?
I have to. No, we're good. We're good. But I can't post as me. I have to switch
Oh,
over to the Threshold account so that I can add a card. How do I add a card? No. Go back to the watch page. There's a button that I can hit. Can I paste it in here as me? Yes! Okay, so that's the link. Our Patreon it's not monthly. It is per episode. So whenever we release an episode, which is going to be roughly once a month right now, then you'll be charged. So some people do monthly, but we decided to do it per episode because we're not always the best, and I don't want to be charging you guys when we're not putting out episodes. So it's any.
Too salty?
Who are you talking to? No, it's never too salty. It's very good. So you'll only be charged when we have a new episode coming out. When that episode, and you don't get charged for any of my posts. You only get charged for the actual Patreon only when we do an episode. I guess we're ready to plate this, huh? Oh, do I need to cut this steak? Yes, sliced steak against the grain. All right, steak, come here.
Is the oven supposed to still be on?
No, turn it off.
So yeah, you'll only be charged per episode. And if you join Patreon, you get kind of...
Yeah, so there's all kinds of, there's great stuff. We got some pins coming. No, I can't show anyone until we give them out to all the special people in our lives. We got some pins coming out. We have we have some exciting potential content coming out. Which way is the grain?
I don't know. Everyone cooked it.
Okay, I'll do it this way.
Just pick something. That's fine.
Some exciting content, Patreon potential content coming out, and for the show as a whole, which I can't discuss yet because we are still talking. We're still in the works putting that whole thing together. But I am super psyched if we can get it, if it all works out. Let's see, what else? Bird's Eye at our highest tier for our Thauthesian Razor Beaks. That's our $8 tier. So any tier will get you in and we'll get the bonus content. I think what I'm going to start doing is I will start doing early access for all of our Patreon subscribers. A couple of days early access, so we'll put the episode up and then it will, you guys will be able to watch it before everyone else. I am going to start trying to do more Patreon live streams like this. I did this one because I'm announcing it, getting people used to the idea that we still have a Patreon. Let's see, did I miss anything else?
No.
Anything else in the comments?
What piece of lore have you been proud of but hasn't become relevant yet?
Oh, Elysian. He's like...
Who?
Yeah, exactly. He is the bard at Raventop. We've seen a bunch of statues to him in Raventop.
He's the one who did Cherry One, right?
Yes. Yeah, I really like Elysian and his whole story. There's a lot of characters like that, especially historical ones, that exist within the Threshold lore, but have not really been... What do these hazelnuts?
They're probably going to pop the steak.
Tossed carrots with hazelnuts on sheet. What?
How do you like your steak?
Rare.
Yep. Bloody.
I don't quite like it bloody, but I'm a believer that if you overcook steak, it ruins it.
Yeah. That is true. So rare. Sometimes I'll do medium rare
So yeah, the Bard Elysian is my favorite piece of maybe Threshold lore that hasn't 100% been come to fruition. He didn't write Sherry Wine, but his story is he's the guy that popularized Sherry Wine. He's the reason why, you know, people still sing this little folk song all these years later, is because of him. He's like the proto Clarion.
Yeah.
You know, like everything Clarion ever wanted to be is Elysian.
Where's that chilled butter? Or is it just regular butter?
Stephen, will I recreate whatever dance move I'm doing in my Patreon picture? Absolutely. So. Oh, I think I'm back.
Back?
I think so. Yep.
Yay!
Okay. So I will finish that story. So long story short, the Peanuts, they all did that. They all do a dance, and so the dance that I did, because they all do those ridiculous dances. Make sure.
And the Charlie Brown Christmas special.
Yeah, the Charlie Brown Christmas special. The dance is like this. So be sure to GIF that and post it in the comments of every video I do from here until the end of time. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off because dinner is ready.
Woo-hoo!
Thanks for the stream. If I can get this camera working out more, I might make this a regular thing while I cook dinner and talk to y'all.
That'd be fun.
Dinner is ready, so that means it's time for me to log off because we are gonna sit in our living room and watch one more episode of Series of Unfortunate Events.
You only have 2 left. You gotta just do the 2.
Well, okay. And thanks everyone for watching. Please check out our Patreon. I'll say it again. It really helps us out. There's some awesome tiers. Bird's Eye at the $8 tier, which is all of our behind-the-scenes footage of our episodes that Patrick shoots. Usually before the episode, he'll shoot it for a little while. At the $5 tier, you get to participate in our polls, which is helping me come up with the stuff that's going to go in these episodes. No, don't stay on me. Stay on me. Thank you. At the $1 tier, you get any of my text posts, any kind of announcements or anything I put on there, and access to our Dungeon Crawl episode and our other bonus episodes. When we get to 100, we're at $150, so Dungeon Crawl is up there. When we get to 200, I will release the ranch timeline. So go ahead and do that. If you want to do your bullshit $41 pledge and then yoink it, I will be a man of my word and I'll put it up there. But
you'll take it down with that $41.
But yeah, right. When you pull your pledge, you'll lose it. But maybe I'll wait to post it until right before the episode's about to go, so I'll get you. But thank you so much. Later, party people.
Bye.
See you guys soon. Goodbye. Stop this.